I want to start this video off by showing you this picture of three M16s. Now, if you look at this picture, could you tell me the difference in the three M16s? Particularly the bottom two. Obviously, the top one has no forward assist, but the bottom two M16s, can you tell me which of those is the M16A1 and which is the M16E1? And I wanted to put this picture in to illustrate some of the misconceptions, I guess I would call it, with the M16A1. So I get a lot of comments, actually from soldiers that served with the M16A1, particularly in Vietnam. And I shouldn't say a lot, but I get some. And they basically say the M16A1 is trash. And I get comments from other people, not necessarily soldiers, saying that the M16A1 had the I can't think of what it's called, but the triangle, flash hider, and I think a lot of that comes down to just misidentification. So when the M16A1 was adopted, it was pretty squared away. It wasn't actually adopted until 1967, the summer of 67, and I don't think it was fielded till early 68. So anything before that time frame would have been the XM16E1. And the way you can tell the difference is the M16 or the XM16E1, had a forward assist. It pretty much looked just like this, except, would have had a chrome bolt carrier group. And I have a chrome bolt carrier group here. It would have been shiny, but I believe they also started to go away from this during the XM16E1. So like at the 66, late 66, early 67, the XM16E1 would have had just your standard phosphate coated bolt as well. So another way to tell is the internals, I believe, at least in the early ones, still had the Edgewater buffer system, which you wouldn't really take notice to. There would have been no fencing down here. It would have just been a boss right here, and that would have been it. But very small details to notice as a young 18-year-old going into combat for the first time. Even for a veteran, in Vietnam, it would have been hard to notice the difference. Basically, most of us are aware of the issues that the M16 had. And that was all basically the early M16, the XM16E1. Basically, that was a failure to chrome plate the barrel and chamber, and it had the wrong powder in the ammunition, which threw the cycle rate off. The XM16E1 was fielded to the U.S. military in mass in 1965, and it shouldn't have been because it wasn't an adopted weapon. It was the XM16E1, hence experimental M16 version 1. So they rushed it into service because we needed a rifle. And then when the M16A1 came along in early 68, a lot of people mistook it as the XM16E1, and obviously soldiers, they didn't care. You were on the line with the XM16E1, you come off the line, hand in your weapon, early 68, you come back on the line, whatever, and they hand you an M16A1, you're not going to, more than likely, realize there's a difference there. And even if you've never had an issue with the M16A1, you're going to remember the XM16E1 and all of its issues, and you're going to think it's the same gun. And for all intents and purposes, it was. It is the same gun. But the M16A1, came with the upgrades. I'm not going to go into all the upgrades. If you're interested in that, it's a very time-consuming video. Small Arms Solution has one or two, and they're like an hour long, so you can go and check those out. Basically, all I wanted to do here was try and help people recognize there is a difference. and make this a shorter video so people would be more interested in watching, hopefully watching the whole thing. So the other thing with the bird cage here, the M16A1 was adopted with this bird cage. So the Colt 601 and the XM16E1 all had the, I know there's a technical name for it, but for whatever reason, I just cannot think of it. But it had the cone, the triangle, flash hider that used to get caught on everything. And they replaced that with the M16A1. So now I'm not saying that the military didn't use up its supply of triangle, flash hiders. I'm going to be editing this video and it's going to come to me as to what the name of that flash hider is called, and I'm going to be mad. But on the M16A1, but technically the M16A1 had the birdcage flash hider. There was, like I said, a little bit of a transitional period in early 68 because the military does not like to waste stuff. The other improvement was, like I said, to the A1, it got a chrome line barrel, and it got the correct ammunition powder, which was the biggest thing. They also changed out the buffer system. And as I said, the buffer system may have been changed out in early XM16E1. Same with phosphate bolt. Also, the M16A1 would be adopted in 67 and 68 with this non-trapdoor stock here. This is called the Type D stock. I actually didn't know that. I thought if it was an M16A1, I used to think if it was an M16A1, it had the trapdoor for the cleaning kit, but the trapdoor actually didn't come into play until 73, 74, around that time frame. So this had the same stock as the XM16E1. I mean, this, for all intents and purposes, it looks just like the same gun, but it's not. The M16A1 was a very squared away gun, just like the modern M4 is today. Now, I'm not saying people haven't had jams with it. Of course, everything jams. AKs jam. But the M16A1 isn't a pile of junk. It's a good service weapon. The other things I wanted to touch on here was this DOD stamp here. I get a good amount of veterans tell me that served in Vietnam and a little after Vietnam that they've had brand new issued rifles right out of the crate, or and they didn't have this stamp on it. I do not know what the reason for that is. This stamp would have been moved to the front magwell here in 68, sometime in 68, early 69. So I can't imagine what soldier would really look at the front of the magwell and look for a stamp. But I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it just wasn't on those particular weapons. I will insert a video of U.S. military training footage of 1968, with the stamp being on the side here.
Times, especially water. If your weapon has been submerged, water won't drain out simply by lowering the muzzle. You have to pull back slightly on the charging handle to break the seal of the round in the chamber. Then, when you shake the rifle, the water will run out. Water in the barrel will obstruct the passage of the bullet and blow up the weapon. The reliability of any rifle depends to a great extent on the care and maintenance it is given.
And actually, the M1 Garands actually had this this stamp here, but it was actually stamped into the wood, much like the World War II stocks had the manufacturer and the inspector's initials stamped into the stocks. In the late 50s and 60s, instead of doing that, they just put this DOD stamp on the M1 Garand stocks and the M14 stocks, and then they just carried it over into an actual stamp. And I'll have to look. I'll try to find it. I believe that ran until like 92. Now, again, I don't know if every single M16 had that. They carried it on to the M16A2. Again, it was smaller and it was in the front here. So when they changed it to the front of the magwell, they actually made this stamp a little smaller. So I don't know 100% if that was, like I said, on every single M16, but that absolutely was a thing, and you can go look up in manuals and training videos and stuff. The stamp is there. I can assure you that stamp is correct and it's supposed to be there. The last thing I wanted to address was just some other comments on people saying that the sling that I had on was on wrong. And it was on wrong, but I did that on purpose. So when the sling is stretched out, this will dig into my shoulder and I don't like it, so I turned it around. And because soldiers did that back in the day, I will put pictures in of GIs doing that, and it's funny because the one guy was like, well, that just because the soldiers did it didn't mean they knew what they were doing. And the one picture I have, I'm pretty sure is a Special Forces soldier. I think it's funny. I hope that guy goes and tracks that guy down, the Special Forces soldier, and tells him that he doesn't know what he's doing. But I did move it back, so when I researched, when I was looking for pictures, what I mostly found was guys running this the whole way to the top here and leaving it at the top, and then whenever it's slung over your shoulder, you don't have any issues. Now, I did have a veteran tell me that it was supposed to be this way here, something to do with stacking the M16s. I didn't see any direct evidence of that, but I'm sure he obviously knows more than I do. I mean, I never served, so I'll take his word at it. I'm not exactly sure how the M16s were stacked. I think they were stacked with bayonets. I did type in M16 stacking, like a stack, to try to find a picture. I could only find one, and the picture you couldn't really see anything of like how it was stacked. But regardless, the sling was on incorrectly, and I do have it on correctly now. But as you can see from the images, it was absolutely used that way. In fact, there's one image of a guy, a soldier, looks like just a ground pounder, maybe a Marine or something. He actually put his sling around his front sight post here. So I guess he was really, he really didn't know what he was doing. So that's unfortunate for him, I guess. But, nothing like some YouTube comments. So, anyways, I would hope that this video may have enlightened you if you didn't know that there actually was a difference. There's two M16s that look almost identical. A lot of people think the early M16s didn't have the forward assist. They did with the XM16A1. That was an Army thing. And like I said, the M16A1 was a very squared away gun, even for, its time. And just like now, I mean, look at in range. They literally threw an M16A1 in a bucket of mud, poured it out, and fired it. So, anyways, I hope this cleared up some misconceptions for you. Like, again, if you want the full detail, the full dive, you really need to go and check out Small Arm Solutions. I don't want to make this a half-hour video, even though I could talk about these things forever. But he is much better at talking than I am. So go check his videos out if you're interested. And have a good day, and thanks for watching.